Many people don't know how the Catholic and also the Vatican City is able to acquire money, and that's why I've made this video today to tell you on how Catholic and also the Vatican is able to acquire money, and also how it is able to run its businesses, which it does through investments, and also most of its money is gotten from donation. And before we get to the part of donation, before that, in the years of 1700s over there and also 1500s over there, Catholic was not depending on donations to get its money, because during that time Catholic had a very large city, and also it had a large amount of people and also groupings during that time. But due to the circumstances and also nature which has brought Catholic to lower and also have a smaller city than as it was used to be having a long time ago, by through war and also some things which the Italians were able to invade the Vatican City and also regain all some of its regain and also take some of its states which the Vatican were heading during the times of 1500s. During the time of 1500s, the Vatican was heading large amount of states, and these states were generating for the Vatican money, and these states were paying a ransom and also taxes for the Vatican. And during that time, leave alone this time where the Vatican and also the Pope as the leader of the church. During that time, Vatican and also the Pope was the leader of the states. He was somehow like a king, and also used to rule a large number of people. He used to decide on what happens and also wars. He was a very large, he had a large influence in these particular activities. So during those times, the Vatican were able to collect tax, and they were able now to sell also to sell produce which its states were producing. And that time it was around the Vatican City, and it was heading an area of around 1500 miles, square miles. It was heading a very large area. And during this time, it was getting a lot of wealth, and this was the main dependency of its wealth which it was getting. And mostly it was getting from the states of how from the people which were over there, the people which were doing the farming. If they were able to produce that the produce which they got into their farms, the Catholic will able to get and also tax these particular things. And during that time, that money, although it was coming up, it wasn't very efficient, and also it wasn't very sustainable for the lives of the Catholics and also the priests and also the cardinals during that time, and also the Pope. So they needed to look for other ways to earn money, and that's when a particular idea and also a particular method which they came up with, so that they can either gather more money and also be able to acquire and also sustain the lifestyle which they were living during those days. So they needed to maintain the lifestyles of the cardinals and also the other people, because during that time they tried all their best just to raise the tax and also raise everything which was during that period of time, but they were not getting enough taxes. So what they decided is they decided to put a particular thing and also a particular method where they'll be able to acquire wealth with just piece of air, where they'll be able to tell people if they want to go to heaven, they'll have to pay a certain amount of money, and this amount of money they will be able to be prayed for, and their sins will be forgiven. This was a very genius method for the Pope during that time and also the cardinals, and that's when they invented something where you can buy a ticket, and this ticket will be able to save you from going to hell. And during that time, it was the time where people were referring it as purgatory. And purgatory is somewhere where you go after where you die. So in purgatory, you await for your judgment. And that's where now many people wanted to have a nice place where they go after they die as they wait for their judgment. So the Pope and also the other cardinals were able to convince people that if they pay a good amount of money, depending on your sins, if the sins is a larger sin, you'll be able to pay more money than what others were paying for smaller sins. So it was depending on the sins which you did and also what you did and how nice place you wanted it to be in the purgatory. So they were able now to acquire new amount of wealth, and that's how they were able now to run and also maintain their lifestyle. Because what they were doing, it wasn't regulated, and also it is something that wouldn't end. It was like a resources, generations after generations, they'll still depend on this thing, leave alone like the other resources like the grapes during those times which they were using to sell. It would end, and eventually there were some seasons where grapes were not there in the market. So this idea of purgatory and also having a ticket will be there for many generations, and there's something which will continue and have a flow of the money which enters into the Vatican. So later on, in the later years of 18, it was 1789 where the French Revolution happened. The French Revolution now changed everything for the Vatican. And during that time, the Vatican now was subjected to high taxes, and they were able to pay the French people taxes of what they used to get during their states. And this was a very downside for them because their lifestyle and also their income started getting also lower. And also other states of the European countries now were able now to see, they were able to see that those particular Vatican people can be able to pay taxes. So also themselves also require taxes from the Vatican. And also the lifestyle of the Pope now started getting lower and lower than what he used to have later years before the French Revolution. And that's when now the Pope now started having more, started increasing taxes on people even more, and people started even complaining even more and more and more. And people were very angry with the particular system, and also which was there. It was just a normal particular system which you can see in any type of country, and also it was just a country of its own, but the country was being headed by the Pope. So people now started getting angry, and also because there were a lot of issues, there were high taxes, the cost of living was very high, the things were not favorable for the people. So the Vatican had to look for newer methods, and when they were looking for newer methods, this time it was too late because everybody was angry for the Vatican, and also a lot of protests were happening during those times. And it led to a particular banker and also a financer of the Vatican City to be killed. And after he was killed, now it's when now the Pope now started having negotiations with the people, but the people refused because it was too late. The Pope tried to release, it was around 1,000 members to the public who were freedom fighters and also which were political fighters, and they were released, but the people were still angry and didn't want that particular regime which was heading them. So that's when now another huge blow came upon them. And during that time, it was during 1848 over there, where they had their income was getting lower and lower. So that's when now Pope now decided to go and ask another particular billionaire during that time, which were the Rothschild family, and asked them for some particular loan where they were able to be loaned $10 million. And $10 million, if you translate to date, it is a large amount of money, even more than 500 million. So they were able to loan the Vatican and also the Pope $10 million, this Rothschild family. And during that time, the Rothschild family were Jews, and these type of relations were not very well familiar because the Catholics and the Jews were very against each other, and they didn't go well because Jews had their own particular system and Catholics also had their own particular system, which is the Romans. And you just know from the biblical aspects, the Jews which had to go persecutions during the time, also Jesus Christ being a Jew also had to go through persecutions because of the Roman, and the Romans were the head of the Catholics. So the Pope had to swallow his pride and also look for a person who can be able to loan him, and the person was the Rothschild family. The Rothschild family was able to loan him, the Pope, $10 million, and this $10 million were able to sustain him for 1 year. The 1 year problem in 1848 it was evaded. So the next year, it is when now blows and also other problems came to him when the Italians were able to invade the particular city of Vatican, and they were able now to reduce the size of Vatican, which was around 15,000 square miles, and now it was reduced to around 0.7 square miles. So it was the size of the Vatican, which you now see today, was reduced by the Italians during the 1840s and 1850s over there. So after them being able to reduce the size of the Vatican had to remain with around 700 people. From people of more than 10,000 people, now it remained around 700 people. So the Vatican now even started struggling even more. And that's when now the Vatican decided to do investments in real estate and started investing into Roman estates and now doing investments so that they can have a return which they'll be able to sustain their lifestyle. So that's when now later on in the years during the 1880s over there, the Vatican now came up with a new method which will be the donations, and they were able to get donations from different other parts of the countries and also different countries, and these donations were able to be given to them. And now the Vatican now started regaining and also being the Vatican and also having the lifestyle which it had even before. And now the Vatican, through the donations, it was even getting more richer. And one thing about the donations, the Vatican used to lie, but during that time, the Vatican was in a critical condition. But during this time of ours today, the Vatican lies its numbers and say, we haven't made any profits, we just want donations. And that's how they are able to get donations from every part of the countries, different countries, be it Australia, be it Europe. They're able to get any type of donations from those countries. So during the time of now World War One, when World War One now came, the Vatican now started doing other things where they were able now, during that time, the Italians were able to go to be against the Germany side. But during that time, the Pope of that time decided to be neutral because he was a church person. He didn't favor any type of side and decided to be neutral. But one thing which he did, he was able to lease a particular land area and also a particular warehouse to a German side, where this German side was making weapons. And this later on, after people realized what the Pope did, people now became angry. But this was later on snapped by the Pope after he said that he didn't know what his tenants and also what his people which hired that particular warehouse were doing. So it was a nice excuse which many people just brushed it off anyhow. But later on in the years during the World War II is when now the Pope decided to choose a particular side, leave alone where during the World War One the Pope didn't choose. Now in the World War II, the Pope decided to go to the Germany side, and also because of Italy, Mussolini, he also went to the German side. So during this time, the Germans and also the German citizens were removing taxes. It was around 10% to 8% taxes of the German citizen. They were able to remove it and give it to the Pope, and that's how now Pope and also the Vatican were able to sustain also their lifestyle. And during this period, they were living very lavish life because the Vatican were having a lot of money which they used to get from the citizens of Germany and also other citizens of Italy. So during this time, they were living lavish life. So later on, they came up with an idea where they'll have to set up a bank inside the Vatican, which will be the Vatican Bank. And this Vatican Bank will prevent them from keeping their money into other banks. If they are able to keep other money into other banks, they will be able to be scrutinized, and also the trace of that money can be easily located. So they had an idea to set up a bank in the Vatican, and this bank in the Vatican will be able to help them keep their own money, and this money will not be easily traced to any part of the country or any part of the world, because what they were afraid of, this money which they were receiving from the Germany side will be later on traced by the Americans and also other parts of the world, and see them that they are having a relations with the Germany sides and also other countries which were against the Germany during that war. So they set up that bank, and that bank were able now to receive money even from Hitler himself and other people like the mafia and also other people, where the Italians people and also the Italian, anybody was free to bank into this Vatican bank, and a lot of money was put in the Vatican bank, where it was not subjected or asked. It didn't have any type of questions or where did you get this money from. And if the money from the Vatican bank is able to go to another bank, it wouldn't be able to be asked by anybody, because it's coming out from a bank, and you coming out from a bank, that is trusted money. So a bank and to another bank transaction it can be trusted. But if it's from somebody depositing, so if the first phase of depositing, which undergoes scrutiny, is put away, and also the money which is inside that bank cannot be traced to any other person, which the Vatican did, and decided that it will keep its money and also the people which invest and also deposit money into that bank to be a secret. This will also make many people invest and also deposit a lot of money. So they created a perfect banking system where nobody will be able to trace the money which they get and also the money which they use. They can transfer it to any other part of the world, because during that time the Vatican bank was not blacklisted, or it didn't have any type of issue. So that's when now mafias and also now started banking with the Vatican. Many people, even himself, Hitler, what he did, he transferred it to a Swiss bank. After transferring it to a Swiss bank, he transferred it to the Vatican bank. And during that time, many people were having some speculations. During that time of World War II, after a particular pope died, that pope, people had some speculations that if Hitler was to remove a certain type of amount of money, then Hitler will be able to choose his own pope. But Hitler didn't remove the money, and he wasn't able to choose his pope. But the next pope also was favoring Hitler and also was favoring the German side. So the relations were just kept on tight, and they were also friends as usual times. So later on, now it's when now during the 1970s, over there 1980s, they were still getting their donations, and also they were still having their bank where they will keep their money, and this was a nice profit for them. And having around during 2003, 2005, and also 2013, having around 1.1 billion followers around the world was also a profit, because donations were still coming from all these type of people. And today in Australia alone, the type of donations which they get per year is around $30 billion in Australia alone. So you can just imagine what about the rest of the other countries. In estimations, if we put all the calculations to all other countries, we can get like $20 trillion per year. So Vatican is earning a lot of money through donations and other type of investments, and also its bank, where many people can be able to put their money inside that bank, where it cannot be able to be traced or be scrutinized and be asked many questions. Where did you get this money? So later on in 2003, Vatican was getting a lot of lawsuits of child abuse and also sex abuse, and that's when now the Vatican now started paying off money to the lawsuits, and also so that they can be settled. So later on in 2013, the Vatican now chose a new pope, which was Pope Francis, and Pope Francis was very friendly to the people, and that love which was lost from those lawsuits of children being abused was regained in 2013 when they chose a friendly pope. And Pope Francis, now the donation now started even becoming even more from the reduced donations which they were not getting 2 or 3 over there, because of the lawsuits and also the dirty allegations of the Vatican. So that's the story of Vatican and how it is able to get its money. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please watch out for the next video. And I say thank you till we meet next time.